in this part, we are going to look at functions and the modules. We will first part, we will look at how to create our own functions. We'll also look at some of the built-in functions available in Python. Then later we will look at how we could use, modules available in Python. Now, when it comes to functions, I told you like it's a name set of statement, and there are various reasons why we use functions. Especially, we can, it will help us to structure the program. So whenever when you want to reuse a particular code, the best would be to put it as a function and you can use it. Now, when in Python, to define a function, we have to use def keyword, and then we need to provide a name for the function, and then within bracket you list any parameters. These parameters are used within the body. Now let's say you are going to write a function to calculate the area of a rectangle. So length and width would be your parameters. If you're, let's say you calculate the area of a circle, the radius would be your parameter. Likewise, depend on some, your requirement, you can define parameter. Sometimes, let's say you are going to print a particular name for 10 times, the name might be the input. And sometimes we can just have, a function without any parameters. Now, to demonstrate this one, I'll be using idle. And then with that one, we'll try to create a function. So let me start idle. And with this one, what we are going to do, let's try to see whether we will have any, function called add function, right? Now to do this, I will first of all, type add. The idea that I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to add two numbers, let's say 10 and 50, right? I'm trying to add 10 and 50. Right now, there's no function called add. So Python will output, okay, it will be a name error. So name add is not defined. So let's define a function called add. So we can start saying def keyword and then name of the function. So I'm going to say add. Okay, now I told you like what I need to do is add in two numbers. So we have to get those two numbers from the outside. So I'm creating two variables like number 1 and number 2. Remember, not like in other programming language, you don't have to define what the type of this, because Python understands this. So that the same function could be used to add, two integers, two floating point numbers. Even you can use it to concatenate two strings, right? I will show you. But then for the time being, let's say, okay, I'm going to print the addition of the number 1 and number 2, right? Okay, so that's all. It's a very simple function. We are going to get two numbers and simply it'll add and then print it out. So let's call the function, meaning you use the function. So I can say, okay, add, right? I can say, okay, 10, 50. Now this time you see the outcome. It says 25. So let's try to pass something else, right? So it will add up. You see? So it's simply use of def keyword and name of the function, then any parameters, and within the body you can write what you want to do with the function. Okay, any questions on this?
So can we pass different data types within a function?
Yes, exactly. Now this is what I told you. Like now the this might be advantage sometimes and sometimes disadvantage as well. You can actually use the same function to add, let's say, um, two floating point numbers. The same function definition we could use. Otherwise, in some other programming language, you have to have like couple of definitions. You can have the same function variations to accommodate this one, but Python directly, because Python, it will already assumed, depend on what we input, it assume it can infer the data type. Now, when you put two integer values, so it will integer addition. If you have two floats, it's floating point addition. And if you mix like something like this, let me say 10.5 plus 8, sorry, comma 8. So where we have one in a floating point and the other one is int, you see what will happen here. So int is converted into float. Right. Similarly, if we have add, this is not recommended, but just to show you, if you have having two values like this, simply it treats as a string values, and we have the addition. That addition means in strings we know concatenation. So when you put 10 and 20, it will just combine 10 20 together, so you get 1020. So you can read more on functions to see like proper use, but in basic usage, you can simply create a function with the set of parameters that you want to define within the function, and that will do the job, and you can use it for various different data types. Okay, so let's look at here. So this is exactly what we did. Now we have created the function called add with the two parameters. We simply print it. Now, when you call the function, the values that we pass, we call arguments. So for example, here when we say 2 and 3, 2 will be passed into number 1, right? So this will be number 1. And then 3 will be passed to number 2. Right? This is number 2. And then what happens? It will add these two together. So 1 plus 2, it becomes 3. Okay, so when you put 10, 30, what happens? There 10 pass it to 1, 30 pass it to 2. So number 1 plus number 2, meaning 10 plus 30, you will get 40. Quick question, simple example. I want you to create a very small function to calculate area of a rectangle. Right? Try this, and once you get the your answer, can you share in the chat your code? Right? So this part, whatever we are going to do here, we are going to already now created two functions, 10, 20 add, and then we have discussed creating area of a rectangle, 10, 5, we get 50. So these two we have created. And then these are like what is already available in Python. And these two, actually, we can store the outcome of these functions into variables, and then we can use this. So this is further manipulate. So because of that, these two are known as a function with written values. But let's try to do the same for, right, with our ones as well. So if you try to do this, let's say we'll say answer 3. So we'll say answer 3. Let's try to have add 10 comma 20. You see it will display some answer because it's print statement, remember? And if you try to print now answer 3, it says none, because the way we have defined, how do we have defined it? We said def add number 1 comma number 2, right? And we said print, isn't it? When you have a print statement, it will print there, but it won't come in back. So that's the reason why when you say this, what happens? You call that function. It will print there, but it will not assign to this one. It will not assign to this one. So that's why when we try to print it, answer, we are getting none here. Now let's look at how to change this. Now for that, we have another keyword in Python, return. I hope you already know if you have done programming. So I'm simply going to change my previous definition, add number 1, number 2, right? And then I'm going to say, instead of print, I'm going to say return, right? We can say number 1 plus number 2. Now we can do this. Why? I will explain. So in this particular case, you know, you call the function, you store the result. So what happens here? With the add 10, 20, so this will actually go to number 1. So this is what will happen here. And then 20 goes to number 2. And then with the return, this outcome will return back here. It will come back, the answer will come back here. So it will replace this whole thing. So if you're passing 10, so number 1 becomes 10, 20, number 2 becomes 20, 10 plus 20, 30, it will return 30 here. So answer 3 will be 30. But earlier in previous one, so you go here and then this one, and you just print it out here, right? It will print it out. It will not come back. So if you want to write a way that the function will return values, make sure you use return keyword when you're defining functions. Okay, any questions, please? Okay, if there are no questions, if this is clear to you, can you please raise your hands? Okay, Shani, which place you want me to explain again?
I'm okay, sir. I could raise it.
So we are writing first a function to add two numbers. So we have def add number 1 and number 2, and then we'll return the addition of number 1 and number 2. Then to get two numbers from the user, I will get the first number. We use the input function, it will convert into integer value, right? And then we will get another numbers we call second number, and then we'll convert it in and we store in J. Now this is the calling function. We say add I comma j. So I will be passed to number 1, j is passed to number 2, and then finally you will get you know, the total as addition of I and j. Okay, let's finish this. We can say print the total is, right? You can simply say total outcome of this. So let me save. I'm going to say save. So we have program 12, function, right? So I will save it. Okay, now I can run module. It will ask the first number. So let me put 10. Then it will ask my second number. Let me put 15, right? It says the total is 25. So there are, you can write functions without any return values, as we have done earlier. And with the return keyword, you can return the value to the main program, right? Okay. So there'll be exercise, but I will keep this for you to try. Writing functions area of rectangle we have done already earlier as well. And then okay, so we'll start with this one. We have already done this. And then the second one, we need it because I'm going to calling functions within the functions. So let me start with this one. So let me use idle for this one. Okay, I will go back to idle session. Right. So we have already defined rectangle. So def area rectangle, we can say length and width. And then we know that with the returning one, so I can say return, I can return the multiplication of length and width. I hope you are comfortable with this, right? Okay, so now we can use area rectangle. We can say, let's say 10,5 will output 50. Now, can you write a similar way, right? A function to calculate area of a square. A small toy problem I'm taking here as well. Yes, let's say def area square. So how many parameters we need if you want to find the area of a square? Now in area rectangle, we need 2 parameters. We need 1, isn't it? Let me say length. And simply, what will be the outcome? We can say return. Simply, we can say length into length. Right? Right. Now, to use it, we can say area square. Simply, let's say 10. Now we'll get 100. It's 10 by 10 then. Right? This is if you are using separate. Right? Now let me show you how we could use the same function rectangle with square. Right? So I'm going to redefine area square, but this time, right, we are getting here length. That is no change. Return, okay. Can you tell me? I'm going to make use of existing function rectangle, right? So what I'm going to do here, when I'm defining area square, I'm going to make use of area rectangle within the function. Right. If you have to use rectangle, same rectangle function to find the area of a square, what we need to do is we have to keep length for both length and width. We have to use length, isn't it? So I can simply say length, comma length. So what I actually did here, I created a function inside the function. I use functions within the function. So to define area square, I actually make use of area rectangle, right? So now when you call area square, right? So what happens? It make use of rectangle. Okay. So I have given the code here as well. So let me show you what will happen. For we have two functions, area rectangle, area square. And we have, in this case, I have defined it as a width and height, and this is length. So in this particular case, the length is passed into length and length here. So what happens? So when you call area rectangle, this will be passed into here to width. Then this length pass it to height. Right? And then we have this answer width and height. So that will actually return the value here. Right? So that will return back to the main program. Okay. Any questions on this? Is it clear to you how I actually use this? Right. Okay. So now I will give you two more problems. You can quickly work on this and share your code in the chat. Right. I want you to start with the first one, that will you define function to get the name of the person, and then you greet saying hello. Let's say you put person name Sampath, and then you should say, okay, hello Sampath. The second, I want to create a function to get temperature in Fahrenheit, and I want to convert into Celsius. Again, equation is given here. So you get the input as a decrease in Fahrenheit, and then you should convert into Celsius. Okay, let's start. Right, something like this. Let's say I'm going to say greeting. So I'm going to say greeting. Let's say Sampath should give me saying hello Sampath. And if I say greeting, let's say Kamal, it should say, okay, hello Kamal. So that means we have to say def. Yes. We can say greeting. we have to get name of a person, right? Something like this. And what you should return. So two ways that you can actually handle. You can say print or you can say return, but know the difference, right? If you want to pass this to a main program, the answer, then use return keyword. If not, you can simply use print. So both ways are possible, but it's up to you to decide how to define the function. But generally, most of the functions will return values, right? So I could say something like this, return. So I have to say hello. I have to add hello to this greeting, isn't it? So simply I'm going to say something like this. So what I'm doing here, basically I will get a hello part and then whatever user inputs, and I concatenate these two together, isn't it? So that's exactly what I'm doing, right? So now you can see if I say greeting, it says Sampath, it says hello Sampath. Similarly, if you say greeting, it says Kamani, right? It says hello Kamani. So depend on what the input, you can get different outputs. Okay, so shall we try the second one then now? Let me resize the window. Right. The next one that I want to do is getting a temperature in Fahrenheit converted to degrees Celsius. Okay, let's try that one. So to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, we have def f to c f, and then we can say return 5 times f minus 32 divided by 9. So if you put 32 here, so 32 minus 32 will be 0, and then that's the outcome. Okay, so next I would like to discuss about the variable scope. The question is, like, given this piece of code, I will explain this, but before that, I need every one of you to answer me, what do you expect as the output in the chat, please, without trying this in the Python shell. So you see what happens. We have variable a0, and then we have a function called change a, no parameters, but within that it will change a to 1, right? So when you say print a, and then you say change a, and then finally you print a again. The question is, what do you think the outcome is? So I'll explain from the beginning, right? So in this code, when you use a equals 0, and def change a, within that one also we will put a equals 1. Now you say print a. With the print a, what will happen? So we have not already called this one, the original value of a 0. So the first a 0 is okay. So this is okay. This is also okay. Right. Now the second value, the problem is with the second value, right? Now let me explain that one. Now, one thing you have assumed here, right? One thing you assumed here is when you say change a, you think it will change this one, isn't it? No, this a is inside this function. This is local to this function, which means this a and the a in outside, it's different. How do you check? okay, there's a way to check. For example, you know that when you're creating variables, right, in the memory, it will allocate a memory reference. So in Python, we have a function called ID, which will give you this information, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add ID here, right? I'm going to say print ID here. IDA. I will explain this. And then here also, I'm going to say, okay, print IDA. Right. I will print this after this. So let me put it here. Because this is just to say that print IDA. Now, what I mean here is give me the memory reference. So let me check. Let me explain ID first. So when you say A equals 10, you know, we create a space in the memory and we store 10 and then we direct label A to 10, isn't it? So this will create, if I draw this, so in the memory, we will have a allocated space. We store 10, right? And then we have a label which actually points to 10. So in Python, to know like this memory reference, right? What you could do is use ID. If you say ID A, it will give you this memory reference. Right. Now let me ask a question. Those who already know, if you are new to programming, this might be confusing, but let's say B equals A. Now what happens? Can some of you comment on this one? How about Menaka?
Designing the value to be.
Yeah, so my question is, will it create a separate memory location or is it pointing to the same memory location?
Separate.
Okay, so that's exactly I want to discuss. In Python, it will be pointing into the same. The reason, right? How do you know? Like just check IDB. Now, what can you talk about this? So in Python, so this is different from different programming languages, right? So in Python, what happens? So this will be pointing to the same. So that means when you say B equals A, so B equals A, so that B is also referring to the same memory location. You got the point, right, Menaka?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if you change it again for another function for B, like let's say B into A into 2 or something like that, then it will go for a different memory location.
exactly. You can try. Yeah, that's the point, right? So others, just to say, now forget about that discussion if you do not understand, but ID will give you in which place in memory this value is stored, right? When you say A10, the value of A is stored in this memory reference. Now you see, now what has happened to us earlier, right? Okay, so we expect that the values will refer in this particular case. You assume that they are the same, but actually it's the different, right? So now let me show you. Now, if I say this and if I run it, right? Now you see, right? These memories are different. So that means this A and this A is different, point in two different memory locations. Right? So what you need to remember is if you define something inside the function, it's local to the function. So make a note of this. It's local. So this is anyway true for any other programming language as well. Whatever you define in a function, it will not visible to the outside. That's how we call it. So because of that, although we say print A, change A, and again print A, so A always be 0. Now let's say we want to change this. The next one, to change this, right? We have to make it global. Right now, this is a local. Local means all variables created inside the function are local to the function. Those variables cannot be used outside the function, right? Now, which means if you need to do this, let's say you want to do this, then to access what is outside the function, we have to make it a global variable. And what we do, we add another statement. Now, let's say we want to say that this A and this A the same, then we have to define this A as a global A. When you use global A, it will be visible to the outside. So the change that I'm going to use here is I'm going to say, okay, global A, right? So when you say global A, and let me say with a different file name, say was K, so program number 14, let's say global. Now let me run. You see the two memory references now, they are the same. So that means now what happens, the variable A outside and variable say A inside, they are treated as a same because it directs in the same memory location. Okay, those who understood this, can you raise your hands? If you do not understand, please don't raise. Perfectly all right. I want to know exactly how many in the class understood this idea. That means global and local. Right now we have Menaka, Tarindu and Romesh, and I assume all the others did not understand this local global difference. Okay, Jayamana. Okay, this is fine. Simply, in simple words, remember this, those who have difficulty understanding this. This is what you need to get out from this discussion. So what is it? When you define something inside a variable, that variable is visible only within the function, not outside, right? So that means the A here and the outside A, they are not related to each other. So that's why the outcome is 0 and 0. But if you want to, the value becomes 0 and 1, if you want to use this to change the value here, so that means you have to make this to visible to the outside, then you should use global keyword. Okay, thanks. You can lower the hands now. It's a difficult concept, I understand. If you are new to programming, I totally understand with that one. But without that, we can, go further. So don't worry. But to completeness, so I actually had this discussion. Right. Okay. Right. Now, the next thing that I want to discuss is the modules. Right. So let me talk about modules now. Okay. So now this is what we need to master when you want to get maximum use of Python. In Python, you don't have to write functions. Now you know that writing function is not an easy task and you don't have to, right? Now, if you're familiar with Excel, you know that if you want to get something done, you have to find out what is the function for that. So similar thing you can done with Python as well, right? And Python, so when you have a bunch of functions, they put into what we call modules, like math module, right? Now math module, you have a bunch of mathematical functions are put into, one module. right? Everything put into one file and we call it a module, and you should learn how to use them, right? There are two ways that actually you can use math module, right? Now let me explain. For that, I will make use of the shell. Okay. Now something like this I could do, right? Now let me say I want to get the square root of 2. So I can try like this. Now we know that there's no function. You can create if you want, right? Because we already know, yes, if you put to the power, like 2 to the power 0.5, you are getting this, isn't it? So you can write a function, but you don't have to. So what you need to do is you use math module. So this is how we will say in Python, we say import math. Now we are indicating that we are going to use math module. Then you say math and the required function. So the function for getting square root of is sqrt, right? So simply you can say true. Let's say you want to get the logarithm, you can say math. Let's say logarithm of base 10, you can say log 10 and the 1000. We know that 10 to the power 3 is 1000. So logarithm of 1000 is 3. So we will get 3 here. Let's say we want to get sine 30, math dot sine. Okay. Now the value we have to put in, radians. It says measured in radians. So first of all, we have to convert into radians. So I'm going to, convert the degree value, let's say 30 to radians. Okay, so radians spellings, radian. So you get, it should be 0.5, right? Those who done mathematics, you remember sine 30 is 0.5, but the function defined as a radians. Now, to get the details, you can always use help. So one thing you can say help.math. So which will give you all the math module, built-in module math, and then you will see all these functionalities available, right? So we have already learned some of them, right? So I'm not going to discuss everything, but you already know. We have done log 10, for example, return the base 10 logarithm of x, right? And then square root of function, that also we have done. So this one, so you see everything is given. Even you can get pi value with math. So simply you can say math.pi. Yes, try. So what you need to remember, you have to say import math, and then you can say math.sqrt. Simple ones. Or math.pi. You can simply make use of what is available in math library. Okay, try this. Right now, this will discuss in detail next week, but for the time being, I will introduce turtle graphics. Now, turtle graphics is a module where we will, introduce the graphics, especially if you want to teach programming for kids. This is where we usually start with. It's called, turtle. If you heard the programming language Logo, how many of you had heard about Logo programming language? Logo. You can raise your hands. How many of you have heard about the Logo? Simply in Logo programming, you have a turtle. So this arrow, for example, indicates a turtle. Let's say you can have like a robot, and then you have commands to move it, right? And especially we can teach the kids how to draw graphics using this. If you have kids with you, and if you want to teach them programming, especially Python, yeah, you can teach this for them. Right? Let me show you quickly. We have 5 more minutes. So I will start with this as a start with idle, and then I'm going to use a script, right? So the very first thing you should do is import turtle. So import turtle, right? Then there are many ways that actually you can create this. So I'm going to first create a object called T, object-oriented programming languages we discussed later on. So I'm going to use turtle. I will create a pen object, or you can use turtle object. Both are possible. Either you use pen or turtle. So in my case, I prefer pen. So which will create a window like this. So you should see now window like this once you add these two. So this is a turtle. Now there are a few commands we are going to learn. So we can ask this turtle to move forward. You can go backwards. You can turn left, turn right, and so on. So let me draw a simple one. So I can say, okay, T dot forward. For kids, you can shorten this one. You can say T dot FD. That's possible. So let me say, okay, 100 pixels. That means you specify distance. So it will move 100, pixels. Then you can turn, right, left and right. So let me say T dot left. We can say, okay, degrees. So I'm going to say, okay, 90 degrees. So it will change. So I can again say move forward. Again 90 degrees. Again move forward. Again 90 degrees. Again move forward. Again 90 degrees. So you can create visuals like this. Right. Any questions on this one?